everybody. Thank you for joining us here on this Monday night for this event sponsored by the Society of Professional Journalists New England chapter. I'm Jeff Kolb, a New England born and raised sports guy, but down here coming to you from Dallas, Texas. Joined now by our special guest, Dan Shaughnessy. I'm sure you've followed his work for years in the Boston Globe. If you haven't, let me give you a little background on Dan's work. Dan's been with the Globe since 1981. He's also written 13 books and has been named Massachusetts Sports Writer of the Year 14 times. Dan was voted Massachusetts Sports Writer of the Year 14 times, was also voted one of America's top 10 sports columnists by the Associated Press Sports Editors a dozen times. In 2016, Dan was the recipient of the BBWAA Career Excellence Award for meritorious contributions to baseball writing, presented at the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. You can't get a higher baseball honor than that. He's here tonight to talk with us about his great career and what it's been like covering sports in Boston and other places for 41 years. Dan, thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule for us.
Thank you, Jeff. Nice to be here.
Absolutely. So let's just go back to the beginning. I know you're from Groton, Massachusetts. I grew up, reading the Boston Globe. What was that thing early on in your life at some point that got you into the idea, hey, I want to be a sports journalist? Were you an athlete growing up? What got the bug going there?
Well, I was the youngest of 5 children, a lot of athletes older than me. I was always going to their games, coming back and reporting the games to my parents. And when I turned about 8 years old, like 3rd grade, I was just immersed in sports. I knew so much more then than I know now, Jeff, about who was playing for the Astros and who was first base for the Indians and all that stuff. I knew all of it when I was a little kid. You're kind of sponge-like at that age. So I was very absorbed in it. I played, and I played through high school, varsity baseball, basketball. I was a big time bench guy, but I liked being on the teams and I loved the experience. Started writing for the town paper when I was in high school, and then I went to Holy Cross College in Worcester and really got absorbed in it at that time. We were a weekly paper. We were still, Holy Cross at that time was still playing Syracuse and BC and Army, and they were, ancillary D1 and had a great history. They had won the national championship in the NCAA basketball and baseball and had been to the Orange Bowl, and it was going away. It became a very small kind of, Division II caliber school later. But they had great lineage. Bob Cousy, Tom Heinsohn, NBA Hall of Famers had gone there, and it was just good lineage. And in those days, the Boston papers, they cared about what was going on with the college sports. I know you from Providence, and the Providence Friars, big deal with basketball, and just there was much more in our area concentration and coverage of the college teams at that time. There's less of that now. We're really pro sports town now, and the colleges don't get as much play. It did then. That was good for me, and I was put my head down. I was about 18 or 19. This is what I want to do. I was able to read the Globe as a high school student, and we had great role models: Bob Ryan, Peter Gammons, Lee Montville, and just this Bud Collins. All these great guys who were really good at their craft. So I had good modeling and started to work part-time at the Globe as a collegian, and then after college covering high schools and the whole grassroots kind of reporting at the for a big paper doing small chores, and that was good experience, and I just stayed with it, and I found it's very helpful to know when you're young what you want to do. A lot of people don't. That was a leg up for me to know early on, this is what I want to do.
So you never had the bug of wanting to be the shortstop for the Boston Red Sox?
Well, you
didn't make that mistake like I did.
Right. It's like wanting to be a fireman or something. I mean, when you're a little kid, you want those jobs: astronaut, fireman, Major League Baseball player. And I was smart enough to size up by the time I was in high school. That's not happening. I'm not going to have a professional career in athletics, but this was a way to be in it. And I was really into the reading and writing, even when I was playing as a little kid. I'd go to the library and I just soaked it all up, and kept my scorebooks, watching the Sox on TV and all that stuff. We had a very good team in our town at that time. The Celtics were winning the championship every year when I was a child. It was the Bill Russell era. And I was in high school before I realized they don't win the championship. I mean, they did every year of my youth. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, they're not the champions this year. So that was good to have that in our background. And of course, we had, Ted Williams, Bill Russell, Bobby Orr, later Tom Brady. We've just had really tremendous stars in our midst throughout my whole lifetime here.
So that's interesting, talking about how you consumed media growing up in terms of, sports journalism. When I was growing up, it was Sports Center. You watched Sports Center on
Sure.
loop. You didn't have that when you were growing up.
Yeah.
Was that rare for kids at your age to pick up the paper, go to the library, like you're saying, read the paper, and also score games, at home, like you're talking about?
Primitive tools, right? You go with what you have, like the caveman days. I mean, I'll tell you, it's probably good. I didn't have as much of a smorgasbord as kids have now. I'd have never
Yeah.
done anything else. I mean, you could just put Sports Center on. And now you can get any college game. You can get high school games. You can get anything you want. Back then, you kind of had to wait for the NBA finals to be televised to see basketball on TV. It was just, the options weren't great. And with the literature, sports books, the librarians knew the new baseball book came in to hold that for me. I'd go down and get it and read it in 3 days and come back. But there's so much now. There's just a lot of options, and it was probably good. It was a little more limited then, but I got Sport Magazine, Sports Illustrated, read the Daily Globe. Sox were on TV a lot, and I was just fortunate to grow up in this area with so many good commentators and writers coming before me to kind of soak up and model yourself after.
So as you mentioned, you went to Holy Cross, and then it's funny because I didn't know this before tonight. You had a first experience at the Globe and then went to Baltimore and came back to the Globe,
Yeah.
right? Talk about that first experience and what it was like. I know for most journalists, it's always like a battle to feel like you're able to break into the industry.
Oh, it's a bear. I mean, and this was in the early days. I mean, at that time, the papers were finally figuring out, hey, we need some diversity in these newsrooms. We got to have some women. There weren't even any women in the newsroom, especially in sports. And then, of course, having African American kids or Hispanic kids, just to diversify the staff, that was just starting. That made it a little more daunting for, your young Caucasian male from Holy Cross. You didn't stand out too much in that crowd. There's a million guys just like you. So that created more challenge, I think. But it was good that Holy Cross was a little bit relevant, and like Providence, we weren't in Boston. So they had stringers. They had one at Dartmouth, they had one at UMass out in Amherst. So the paper had stringers at the colleges, and I served that for a couple of years, able to get bylines in the Boston paper while I was there. And then I was always dogging them for, let me come in and drive around, run errands, get coffee, whatever. And they let me do that a couple summers after graduation, along with Leslie Visser and Kevin DuPont, who were in the NFL and NHL Halls of Fame, respectively. We all were doing high schools together after graduation from college. And that was great training. You got to keep your own stats, keep your own yard markers, how much the running back has. You got to do it all yourself. And but we were writing stories, little stories for the Boston Globe, and that was a big deal. Newspapers had great reach at that time. And circulation's close to 1 million, and everybody read the Globe, and you could change a kid's life by writing a high school story about him in the Boston Globe. That no longer exists. But at the time, it was great training, and we were lucky to be there at the time we were.
One of the cool things about sports journalism is, I think, having an interest in athletics, what it's like to follow people who've made the climb through the minor leagues. Whenever I tell people about my career, I say it's been like minor league baseball. You're trying to work your way up the different levels. I read your credentials, obviously, off the top of this event, being recognized in Cooperstown and being named Sports Writer of the Year and writing all these books. When you were just breaking in at the Globe that first time, could you have foreseen the career to come? Did you believe that it would happen?
Yeah, I wanted to be Peter Gammons. I wanted to be Bob Ryan, and
yeah,
I was lucky. I worked hard at it and had some breaks and things, but it was hard to crack in. Having the models that we had was really helpful, and it was a great time in Boston. One of the teams generally was always hot. I mean, the 75 World Series happened when I graduated from college, and that was Carlton Fisk and a home run, and all these famous things would go on. So sort of in the middle of it, and it was just lucky to be there at that time.
So as I mentioned, Baltimore, and I think a lot of journalists can relate to, you have to move away from home at some point in your career. For most people, some people get lucky and that doesn't pan out to be the case. What can you say about the Baltimore stop and how that launched you to get back to Boston?
Well, I was 2 years out of college. I was doing high schools for the Globe. Again, small fish in a big pond. But I was always again, hounding the older guys to look out for me, and they did. Peter Gammons looked out for me. He was going to Sports Illustrated, and he heard about an opening at the Baltimore Evening Sun. I had applied everywhere, and got all the rejection letters, and I still got them in a drawer behind me here. And
Really? Okay.
Peter
That's pretty cool.
put a word in for me in Baltimore, and I'd been able to run around Fenway Park getting quotes for the old guys for Associated Press, and just had all these little credentials as a young person. So the Baltimore Evening Sun took a chance on me, and they put me on the Orioles when I was 23 years old, and that was it. There was no holding back after that. That's the opportunity that I wanted, and I was fortunate to get that, and I ran with it, and never stopped. I mean, it's you kind of. I'm going to Cleveland this weekend to see the Patriots, and I know that the Guardians will be home against the Yankees. I've got the universal press credential. I can go over and watch that thing if I want, but it's like
you should.
my first road trip with the Orioles was in Cleveland in 1977. I was 23, and it's like, what have I done with my life? Here it is, like 45 years later, and doing the exact same thing. So I guess that's not much progress, but it's been a glorious time for me.
You mentioned your trip coming up. Let me just take a tangent because I'm curious, and I know you wrote about Zappy today in your column. Is there a quarterback controversy coming? In Dallas, we've had talk of a quarterback controversy that's, I think, ludicrous because I think it's Dak's job. But what do you think of this whole Zappy Mac Jones situation?
Well, these are rich, and we're trying to push that narrative, of course, because it's just more fun.
Right.
And they had all the success with Tom Brady all those decades, and it was amazing. It got a little stale. It was the same thing every year, and the division was weak every year, and but they went to 9 Super Bowls. They won 6. That was pretty good. But now it's a little more fun to be kind of hungry here, and new things, new players. First round pick who started as a rookie last year, and Mac Jones gets hurt. Brian Hoyer, the backup, the veteran, he gets concussed. Third stringer comes in, 4th round guy from, Western Kentucky. Before that, it was Houston Baptist in Western Kentucky. 3rd string, 4th round, and he made his first start yesterday, and he was 17 for 21, and threw a TD pass, and they beat the Lions 29-0. And he was a game manager, which is what they want. But Belichick likes to mold these young guys, and he appears to be very coachable. So yeah, we're trying to stir up the narrative. I mean, Jones has a high ankle sprain. I doubt he'll play this weekend. They may as well let that thing sit. They got a soft part in their schedule a little bit, and they can ill afford to lose any more games. They're 2 and 3. But I think Zappy will play this weekend in Cleveland. And if he has another good game and they win again, we'll start ratcheting up maybe this phony controversy that he could move on to the job if Jones is healthy, because that's what happened to Drew Bledsoe when young Tom Brady was an up-and-comer 6th round pick in 2001. So we're always kind of looking back and looking for things. But Belichick likes to think that the system is bigger than the star. So you can be sure he's enjoying maybe Jones a little insecure about his position, having this 3rd stringer come in and win.
Yeah, well, knowing Brady's story, there's something alluring to seeing the 3rd stringer get his chance. So is there any comparisons you can see between when Brady took over for Bledsoe to Zappy, or is that just a crazy question?
Well, Brady, was just physically equipped better. He was 6'4", and this kid is 6 feet, if that. And I know Tom was a 6th rounder, but Zappy played at Western Kentucky. Tom played at Michigan, played in the Rose Bowl. I think was more equipped, probably a better future. They kept him around as a 4th quarterback in his rookie year. He never played. Yeah. Who knows? But a 6-foot guy in the NFL today who played at Western Kentucky, that's a tough one. And again, there's only going to be one Brady, and we had that. But certainly the narrative, and this is what we do, we'll be pushing this thing, especially if they play the Jets after the Browns, and they got the Bears. They got winnable games. So he could go on a little bit of a run, which would make the Jones thing interesting. Because we know one thing, Bill Belichick is not afraid to go with a new guy, even though the old guy is the star, which is what Bledsoe was at the time Brady came along.
That brings up a good point. You mentioned the word narrative. And as a columnist, I think that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's oftentimes what you're looking for. Talk about that process. It's much different from doing the beat writer role of just kind of reporting the game.
Yeah, I mean, the beat writers do the work. They're the ranchers. They're 24/7, especially in the day of the internet and instant news and all this stuff. It's really hard work, and they can never rest. The columnist, it's a little cushier. You're telling stories. You're trying to entertain, inform, chase narratives, and just have fun. And so even if it's a little goofy or silly, I go out there with that a little bit more. And I've done everything. I've been doing this for so long. But you want to stay sharp and look for the things that the readers are going to have interest in. And anytime you get a quarterback controversy, even if you have to push it along a little bit, that's interesting. So we're enjoying this, and for the columnists, it's good fun. It's another incentive to go back to Cleveland and pick it up this weekend and see how this kid does in his
Yep.
second start.
Now, as a columnist, and we kind of touched on this before, I think generally columnists are not out there on the front lines as often, would you say, as a beat writer?
Oh, they're not in the face of the coaches, managers, players,
Right.
the way the beat guys are. And of course, with the pandemic, we got pre-pandemic, that's never coming back to the way it was. But
Right.
pre-pandemic, the beat guys, you're in the room all the time, and you learn more, and you find out, and you go to the other team's side, and they'll talk about the team you're covering, and you learn a lot in the room being around it. You just know how they feel about each other, how they feel about the coach, how they feel about the owners, how they feel about the fans, and you can tell the readers what they're like if you're around them. So it's important for the beat guys to be in the room, around the players, around the team, and the columnists. It's always good, and you need to be accountable. You need to get in there if you're ripping people and let them come at you and show your face. But the actual reporting is done by the beat guys, the harder work. We're kind of sucking off their hard work and having opinions and subjective takes about it.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of what I was hoping to get at, is when you're writing more of the opinion piece, how do you navigate that? Hey, I haven't necessarily been actually around these people face to face as much.
Right. Well, again, I think that you don't want to get, too cushy about it, but like, I know Belichick, I know how he thinks.
Right.
I've been to dinner with them. We're the same age. I've seen this whole thing evolve. So you have that perspective. I know what it smells like in Buffalo during the games and the parking lots and the sausages and all this. So you've done everything. I know what the atmosphere is going to be like in Cleveland. I mean, the Indians or the Guardians are going to be playing the Yankees over the weekend. It'll be kind of electric there. They have great fans. Having done it so long, you kind of know the region, what the fan base is like a little bit. You never know as much as you think but it helps. And to just create that atmosphere and to bring that to your readers and capture that. I don't know, what's his name? Zappy, his first name,
Bailey Zappi. Yeah,
I don't know Bailey Zappi personally.
Zappy time.
But I saw the Brady Bledsoe thing evolve, and you just falling back on history there. And I mean, there's pretty good availability, even if you're not there, with the Zoom interviews now, and the press conferences are televised, so you can get a sense. And when someone says, how long did it take to write that column? I say it took 69 years to write that column, because I've been, the meter's always running. There's always something that you're gathering, and you're tucking that away, and there's a place to have it spill out. So again, you can't think you got it all figured out, but you're able to bring a career, a lifetime of decades of traveling to Cleveland, being around the Patriots, and bring that to your column. And hopefully the readers are better served for that, even if they don't like you or if they disagree with you, which is okay. It's only sports.
Just out of curiosity, so down here in Dallas, we've pretty much done away with Zoom availabilities. Is there pretty much typically both options with most of the teams back?
I think that's going away largely, and that's a good thing, because it doesn't reward the people who go to the venues, and the people who go to the venues should be rewarded with the access. If you get everybody sitting at home because they're too lazy to go out there on Zoom, that's not desirable, and the experience isn't the same. And you want to do your own work, get out of the house, go do your own work, talk to the people yourself if you can. Increasingly, that's been restricted. And of course, the teams kind of like that. They don't like as many people snooping around, getting one-on-one access to the players or coaches, because more stuff leaks out that way. So the Zoom and the whole orchestrated press conference is preferable to the teams and the leagues. NFL's the master of that. It's just harder to get any connections or develop relationships when everything is done in a group setting, whether it's Zoom or in person. So you always want to try and fight that and get around them as much as you can.
Yeah. I want to go back to some of your beat time with the Celtics. When you took over that beat, what did that mean? And talk about some of getting to cover the C's and the 80s. And I know you've written a book with Larry Bird off of some of that time.
Yeah, I did a book last year during it's a pandemic book. I mean, wish it lasted forever. Life with the Larry Bird Celtics, because I was on that team for 4 years, and it was when the NBA went from kind of being a little bit of a small time league, and everything happened. Magic Johnson and Larry came into the league. Celtic Laker thing took off, and it was kind of like the Ali Frazier of the NBA. TV ratings took off. David Stern became commissioner. Michael Jordan was drafted. That took off. The next thing you know, they're having the dream team in Barcelona, and then the NBA is like a global entity, which it still is today. Very popular with young people on a global basis. The players interact with their fans on social media. So that's been quite an evolution for the NBA. But I was there at the beginning when there was there was none of that, and we traveled with the team. I mean, it was like being on the team, except not having the money or the groupies or the fame or any of the ability to play NBA basketball. But we flew commercial with them. We waited for bags with them. We went to the hotel bar, stayed in the same hotels, rode the bus. So you really got to be able to tell the readers what Cedric Maxwell's like, what Larry Bird's like. And those were great years to cover the team. And so I put that book together. And again, nobody today is going to be able to write that book about Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown or whatever, because they can't get near them. They charter now. There's a big moat. Locker rooms closed to the media off the pandemic. They haven't come back. So it's just harder to really know what they're like and tell the readers, the fans, what they're like. But we were able to do that. And today the players can connect with the fans themselves. They don't need the media to get the message out. They can kind of control it. It was not controlled when I covered the team. We were forced on them, and we had to live with one another the way you do with your college roommates or whatever.
I want to read a question that our SPJ president, Rebecca Aguilar, is actually submitting here. She writes, Dan just said he is friends with Bill Belichick and even has gone to dinner with him. When you have to criticize him as a coach, does your relationship change? Has he ever shut you out for what you've written?
Well, I'd have to roll back the tape, and I would doubt that I said the word friends. But I've known him for 40 years. We started out.
Does he have friends?
I don't think. And you know, I would never characterize relationships with the people we cover as friends or friendly.
Right.
I mean, sometimes later on, maybe that's there, and when you're kind of old and out of it, out of the daily. But we're not their friends. But again, I feel that with Bill, if I have to get him one-on-one, I can do it. He'll grant me that respect. And he likes a little pushback, even in those group things when he's being a dick and that whole thing. He kind of wants a little bit of pushback, I think, and he can enjoy it. And he doesn't mind being challenged. You just got to pick your spots. You don't do it seconds after the game's over and they just had a horrible performance against somebody and turned the ball over 6 times and ask an obvious question. How does it feel, Bill? He's just going to snap at you and snort at you and all that. But again, being the same age and having, when he came to Boston, we went to dinner because he was soliciting favor because he had bombed big time in Cleveland. He had been a very effective coordinator under Parcells.
This is right when he got to New England.
When he got the job in 2000,
okay.
He was a failed coach from the Cleveland Browns who had been a coordinator here with some success with Parcells. But
so did he reach out to you?
His aide de camp, who's still the guy, his Bears Najeri, his right-hand man, reached out and said, yeah, let's have dinner in Watertown. And we did. It was very cordial. And I went down to Nantucket and did an ESPN magazine story on him. And he was never going to light up your notebook too much. But so like a month ago, I came back to it. I don't abuse this chip very often, but I said, hey, I just need him for a few minutes. I don't want to ask this stuff in front of everybody else. So he got him over the phone before the start of the season. And I just talked about, Bill once sort of mocked Marv Levy he said, I don't want to be coaching when I'm 70 like Marv Levy. And now he is. So I wanted to ask him how he felt about having made that statement. He said, I wish I hadn't said that. I didn't want to ask that in front of everybody in a Zoom thing. That's not good. Plus everybody gets your answer, so you want to get this one-on-one. And I talked about, he took a lot of heat for bringing in Matt Patricia, failed coach of the Lions, Joe Judge, failed coach of the Giants, makes him his assistants. And everybody's saying he's hiring his friends, cronyism. This is a disaster. He's got these guys, coaching the quarterback. They don't know what they're doing. And I challenged him on that and said, this is what's out there. And how do you answer that? And he said, well, it's all on me. That's my decisions. And if it fails, I'll take the blame. And, he hadn't said that. So that was good. So you just get your little nuggets here and there, but it's not like we talk every week. It'll probably be another year or two before we come back to a situation where I try to do that again. Maybe when he's getting close to Shula, he wants to catch Shula, who's still, I think, I don't know, 22 wins ahead of him or something.
Right. Just out of curiosity, and I know I'm going with a lot of Patriots questions here. Do you think Bill knows before these press conferences, like the on to Cincinnati, or what was the phrase
Day
he
by
was saying
day
on the
was the
Mac
most recent thing.
day by day?
When
Do you think
Jones
he
got him.
knows, or does he just go with that? Like it just kind of comes to him mid press conference?
I think it comes to him as a logical answer that he's going to stonewall the question, and then he will just keep coming back to it. Like, I've already answered that. I'm just going to say it again. So we're on to Cincinnati or day by day. If they keep
Yeah.
coming at the same issue with a different way to phrase the question, he's just going to give the same answer to basically deliver the message that that's all he's going to give you.
Yeah. I'm going to read this one verbatim. Our guy, Adam Sennett, who organized this, put this one together. So if you don't like the way this is phrased, he's on the hook. He writes, some readers and players have labeled you a troll. Others have given you colorful nicknames. Cliff Keen dubbed you the baby-faced assassin at Holy Cross. Larry Bird called you Scoop. Kevin McHale labeled you Shank. Carl Everett referred to you as the curly-haired boyfriend. That might be my favorite. How do you deal with that, and does it ever get too personal?
Well, I mean, we're kind of in the business of writing about them. Sometimes in Boston, everything's personal. You're from New England, you get
Right.
it here.
Yep,
We cover sports, and people, we always say, sports, politics, revenge. That's what keeps the place going here. And people have long memories, and I'm the same. And I've certainly had, as a columnist, especially had agendas and, show a guy in a certain light that not that favorite. Kurt Schilling was one, the guy was a great performer, but he's a complete jackass. So, he and I would insult each other pretty openly. And,
Mhm.
and it's only, it's only sports. So we're just getting the message out there. But, people get very personal here with their opinions, and that's sports. I still think we should be able to disagree about how we feel about Kevin Durant or Manny Ramirez or Roger Clemens or anybody, and still go out and have a beer and laugh about it because we disagree. It's only sports. There's a lot of disagreement in America today, and it gets very emotional for people. And
Yeah.
that's for the political table and the Thanksgiving, and you can't talk to your brother-in-law and all that stuff. And I don't think we should need to get there in sports. So it's okay to disagree. Those nicknames, I mean, a couple of them maybe, border on hate speech, but we can take it. So it's like, and I've nicknamed a million guys, so it's like, yeah, it comes with it. And as long as people aren't, burning down your house or going after your children or something like that, we can roll with it.
Yeah, you have to have thick skin. He put a couple of the nicknames here. Is Jurassic Carl your favorite that
That
you've
was a good
given
one.
someone else?
Carl Everett did not believe in dinosaurs. The Sports Illustrated had this great piece came out, and it's like, what? And he was a nutty guy anyway. And
Yeah.
his teammates were afraid of him. There was a lot going on there. He was headbutting umpires and all kinds of stuff. I don't know. Carl would go off the meds every now and then. So yeah, he became Jurassic Carl when we found out about the dinosaur theory. It's like when Kyrie Irving said the Earth was flat. Those kinds of things.
Right.
Great.
What about David Ortiz? I know that's a guy that you've had, some back and forth with over the PED stuff.
Yeah.
Bring us through what happened there and kind of where that's at.
Yeah, I saw his whole career, and it was amazing what happened. I mean, the guy was released at the age of 26. I don't think you can find another Hall of Famer that was released at that age. He came here and he was Rambo here, and the clutch hitting is off the charts, and the hits are the hits, and he did it. I just, as it got later in his career, I was suspicious that he was on the level, and I find it with these situations, rather than have a whisper campaign or suggest things, you just go ask him. So I went to him. I have this little old timey tape recorder device here, right here.
Yep.
And I went and I said, David, it was a year or two left in his career, and he was just killing it again. His bat speed was the same as Giancarlo Stanton. He's like 39 years old. I'm like, what's going on? And, he failed the test in 03, and it got some forgiveness on that no one else gets. So and he gave thoughtful answers, and we talked about it. He wasn't particularly happy with it, but And then I wrote the story with all this just direct quotes, and he didn't like that either. And after that, we didn't have much of a relationship, and I understand that. And I did not vote for him when it came up for the Hall of Fame, and because I didn't vote for any of the guys I suspected. That goes back to Bonds. Sammy Sosa hit 60 home runs 3 times. I didn't vote for him. And guys that are in there, Mike Piazza, Pudge Rodriguez, Jeff Bagwell. I chat with these guys in Cooperstown, but I just did not vote for them. And they're in the Hall of Fame. What do they care? They're in the Hall of Fame. And Ortiz got in the Hall of Fame without my vote, and 82 other guys didn't vote for him either. So that became a thing because I work in Boston, and he's so popular, and he delivered so greatly in the clutch moments. And they hadn't won a World Series in 86 years, and he was just, the guy hit like 688 in the World Series in 2013. He was ridiculous. So
Yeah.
It just was one of those things. I had to be consistent with how Roger Clemens, I saw it at his height, and I didn't vote for him either. And I feel badly. I just thought he was using it at the end. And so I'm trying to be consistent on that. But, you're always a jackass when it comes to voting for Hall of Fame and those kinds of things. I understand the fans don't like it, and everybody has their own standards for that. And with young people, it's pretty much, hey, the numbers are the numbers, and just vote them all in. We don't care. And I understand that. So I'm okay with that too. And these guys are all in the Hall of Fame that I didn't vote for, except the ones who aren't, which is Bonds, Clemens, and Sosa, and those guys. So it's a
Rod, yeah.
The thing with Ortiz got a little personal, and he didn't like it, and I celebrate the things he did, and I question the manner in which he did them, along with many other players.
Yeah, I mean, Red Sox fan, I love Ortiz, but I do agree. Like, he just gets this level of love and sort of skate by that I don't think, but the whole era is complicated. I look at Ken Griffey Jr. Everybody loves Ken Griffey Jr.
You don't know.
No, who knows?
It wasn't as much, but David failed a test and got forgiveness that no one else got from Rob Manfred.
That makes it different.
I mean, the other guys that blew positive in that test were Sammy Sosa, Manny Ramirez, and Alex Rodriguez, and none of them got the commissioner to come out and say, "Hey, don't be believing our test. This guy's okay." They didn't get that. He got that. And he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I want to ask another question from Rebecca here. She writes, Boston Globe's Bob Ryan, who you know well, of course, recently called Kevin Durant a shithead in a podcast conversation. She writes, criticizing is one thing, but should we as journalists be calling sports figures names, using profanity to describe them? What do you think on that, Dan?
Well, I just called Kurt Schilling a jackass, I think, on the spot on our little segment here like 20 minutes ago. So I have to be careful there. And Bob Ryan is one of my great friends and role models, and he's on my porch every Wednesday with a bunch of other knuckleheads here. So we need to be careful. And, generally, like, try not to say things that you wouldn't write or commit to print. And, I think I have called Kurt a jackass in print, so I'm being consistent there. But yeah, you don't want to get a little loose just because you're in a different, I know in podcasts you can say words that you can't say in other public forums. But and frankly, I don't know, not around Durant like Bob is, or around that league as much as he is, or know it as well. But that whole thing in Brooklyn, a lot of regrettable things have gone down the last couple of years, and I thought he'd be the one to survive it and kind of come through with unscathed, and that hasn't happened either. So I'm not sure what's going on. But again, if Bob Ryan says it, ask him about it. And I have tremendous respect for the guy, and all was well.
You bring up podcasts. We bring up podcasts. We're talking about social media, how people, like we were talking about a few minutes ago, it seems like people take things more to heart. People are more sensitive. Everything's sort of inflamed on social media, I think, a lot of times. I wanted to ask you about brand. Is that something you've always thought about, like your brand? Or is that, today everyone talks about brand.
Yeah.
I have to build my brand. What would you say about that over the course of your career?
It's a new word. It wasn't part of the conversation when I was coming up. We just wanted to get our name in the paper, right? Get a byline, and wanted to get paid for it, but you wanted people to know who you were to sort of ascend at the paper. And then if you did more things and people liked your work, you might get offers to get paid to go speak or to write freelance stuff or to write books. And some of that I think came with the team you were covering and how popular it was. Like obviously, if you're covering the Cowboys in Dallas, you're getting a lot more attention than if you're covering the Dallas Stars or whoever may
Yep.
be. And so, or even if you're the baseball guy covering the Rangers, you're not as well known or read as the people covering the Cowboys. And getting options to go on ESPN, those panel shows and all that. So yeah, there's a ceiling on what, again, newspaper people, these are arcane terms that don't apply to a lot of young people anymore, but breaking into the newspaper field, there was a ceiling on what you could make. And a lot of people, creating the brand, branching out. And Bob Ryan gets to go on round the horn, and then that's lucrative. That's money, and it's popularity, it's fame, and people want to buy your book, or that's the brand. And we've all done that to a degree, some more than others. But if you had a national platform like those round the horn guys or ESPN, you certainly would spread the brand. Look at like Schefter and Mortensen and all those guys, Jeff Passan now, and they've got strong brands, and it allows them to get book contracts and speaking gigs and that kind of thing. And it's supplementary income, which is in some cases becomes the larger thing for them. And it's understandable. I knew Wilbon when he was a humble sports writer, and Tony as well. They were just, Tony was a great writer. It always breaks my heart that no one knows that. He was really a gifted writer. And we wanted to write like Tony. And then, of course, then he goes into TV. Like, what's he doing that for? You know anything about TV? And those guys are magic on TV. So, yeah. And I saw that, I was Will McDonough was at the Boston Globe, kind of started all that. Sports writers selling their knowledge to television and going on. Willie went to CBS and was on every weekend, and it started to gravitate. So, yeah, the brand's important. I think now it's just a way to make yourself a little more indispensable and employable, visible, and makes you able to make a better living.
Yeah, another guy that comes to mind from the newspaper business going to TV inescapably is Stephen A. Smith. He started at the Philadelphia Inquirer, right? I believe it was. And there's a case of a guy who now he's all about takes.
Oh my
people
God.
feel different. People feel different ways about that.
Sure.
How have you? Feel free to talk on Stephen A. because I'd be curious to get your thoughts on what he's done. Do you like it? Do you not? But also just across the landscape, how have you seen, are certain writers doing what you do, trying to kind of pick a certain brand? Hey, I want to piss everybody off every time, and that's going to be my thing. Things like that.
Yeah, and I get accused of that as I've gotten older. I've gotten crustier and more reckless with opinion making, and I think, but mine are not fabricated. They are how I feel at the time, and I don't feel the subject matter is that important. You don't want to be messing with people's lives, but as long as you're honest to what you feel, I think that's okay. And Stephen A., again, I like the fact that he was a reporter. He was in the trenches. He was in the locker rooms. At the time that I was doing it, a little bit after, and I always had a lot of regard for him as a journalist and as a worker and as a guy with sources. And so I've seen this evolution of, he's the hot take guy and he's a billionaire now and all that stuff. And good for him. I enjoy him. He's bombastic. And I think most of it, I think he's really good at what he does. And I laugh. I watch it and I laugh, and I'm in on the joke, and I think he is too. And I enjoy watching him on TV. So yeah, if he's on, I like having it on and keeping an ear to the ground.
I don't think you can argue that he's not good at what he does, especially speaking from the TV side. Mm-hmm. It's impressive. Especially if you think he does not believe the take he's going with. Yeah. That impresses me more than anything. But there have been some takes that rub me the wrong way. I'm mixed on Stephen A. Sure. But as a TV person, I'm very impressed. I don't know that I could ever do what he does. So that's fascinating. I want to squeeze in a couple more questions from the chat here. Let's see. Peter asks, do you think there's a bigger, worse Boston sports villain than Bill Laimbeer?
Well, Peter's got some institutional memory there. That's good. He's on the cover of the Celtic book that I did. They're trying to get a rebound with Bird and McHale and Parrish and underneath. But Lambeer, again, this goes back to the 80s. He was a big time villain. We've had, you know, Kyrie Irving the last couple of years certainly became a big time public enemy in our town, stomping on the logo and just
Incense and all
flipping
that.
off the fans and all this kind of thing. So uh, he took it to kind of another level. But with Lambeer, the hatred started with the players because Larry hated Lambeer. So the fans picked up on that, and then Parrish threw a bunch of punches at him in a playoff game and got suspended for that. It was real. I mean, Larry wanted to know if he was going to be an all-star teammate because it would ruin the all-star experience for Larry. And we were able to tell the readers about that. Larry wanted to know if Lambeer made the team because it affected how he felt about going to the all-star game. So that was when the players have it, the fans pick up on that. I don't think you have as much of that player on player stuff anymore. They're a little bit more kind of tight, symbiotic, and all in it together kind of thing. All those hugs and stuff you see after the games, that did not go on in the 80s when the Celtics were playing the Pistons or the Bulls or the Lakers.
Yeah. And maybe this is a tangent, but maybe related too. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with this Golden State story because with Draymond and Jordan Poole, I mean, you just have to wonder. It seems like there was more built up behind that punch than just what happened on that day. But I know that the contract stuff's out there, but we'll see.
Well, the video was really, startling. And again, I've been in a lot of practices. I never saw anything like that at practice.
Yeah. I want to read this one. This is kind of following up on what we were just talking about a moment ago. Avi Shemtov writes, you mentioned that sometimes as a columnist, you push agendas. In Boston, I think it's fair to say your brand is often seen as critical, parentheses, fair and unfair, and contrarian. How often would you say, if ever, you've written criticism because it would start a conversation rather than because it was your conviction? I know you said before, everything you believe.
I would say never. I mean, it's always how I feel. And I don't feel like when the Patriots were, so good, they won the division like 17 out of 18 years, AFC East. And I would just mock the AFC East, like the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Jets. I'm like, these are tomato cans. They suck, and it's not the Patriots being great as much as it's these teams they fall all over themselves. And then you do like name the best quarterback in 20 years in the AFC East after Tom Brady. And it was like Chad Pennington. I mean, they had nothing. Like now the Bills have Josh Allen. I mean, that didn't exist for 20 years. So when I consider this truth telling and my truth, but it would be taken as critical and negative. But you're not giving the Patriots credit. Well, yeah, you're right. I'm just kind of, and even yesterday they beat the Lions 29-0. Lions were in field goal range 7 times and never got 3 points out of it. I mean, they went for it on 4th down. They turned it over. I mean, that's shooting yourself in the foot. So it's great that you shut them out, but that's bad coaching and bad quarterbacking by Jared Goff. So I think that sometimes the fans, they're fans and they love the team, and I understand that. And they consider us denigrating the achievement of the home team if you point out the people they beat are just so bad. Just showing up, you beat them. And that happened yesterday. But so yeah, I get a little cynical that way. And there's enough praise and gushing about, the Red Sox had this kid come up, Tristan Casas, who's a good looking first baseman, and was presented to us as the next Lou Gehrig because he takes a lot of walks. He's got good on base percentage. He hits home runs to the opposite field. He hit 197. I'm like, pump the brakes on Tristan Casas. I think he's going to be really good too. But 197, he wasn't real good in the month he played here this year. But in everybody, there's just this rush to anoint and celebrate people that maybe haven't earned it yet. Because I don't know. Just so anyway, that's considered contrarian or negative, whatever. And yeah, it's only sports, but I'm always kind of pumping the brakes on stuff like that. But we've had a lot of chances to celebrate here with 12 parades in this century, and I could show you the front pages on the wall behind me here with all those great things we've written about them. So folks need to remember that we do celebrate their greatness when they're great.
I want to squeeze this one in because I like this question too from the chat. Is there an interview you haven't been able to get that you'd still like to do today?
Oh boy.
Not Belichick. You got
well, I mean, we'd like to get Malcolm Butler to tell us what happened in that Super Bowl. That'd be good. Why didn't you play? Some of the Patriot cheating guys, who were, inflating the footballs, Jastrzemski, McNally. It'd be great to get those guys to tell the truth. Right now it'd be great to get Ime Udoka to tell us what the hell happened there.
Yeah, I'll say that
Did
again.
you get overpunished by the Celtics, or did you mess up in a big way? So yeah, there's always stuff that's on your mind and that you'd like to go get. And there's a million things. I've been fortunate, having, talking to Bobby Orr or Larry Bird or Bill Russell, whatever, but you always want more. I mean, I would have liked to have gotten Russell over the last 10 years, and he just drew the curtain. He wasn't doing anything. And now he's not there anymore to do it for us. But yeah, there's always people that you want to get and get more.
I want to go back to, you were talking about Peter Gammons earlier in the chat, and obviously a legend, in the media world, in the baseball world. You talked about in that first stint, he was advocating for you, maybe helping you find places to apply to. Talk about what advice you would give to young journalists trying to reach out to mentors. I think that's always a tough deal. You see someone like yourself or a Bob Ryan, and oh man, I'm like the intern in college. I'm the first year person. How do I go? I don't talk to them. What would you say to that?
Well, I think that, again, we're always looking for talented young people to fill our shoes, to replace us. And I remember how good people were to me. I return all my emails. Send someone an email, put your phone number on there, and I'll call you. I always have. It's not that hard. I don't get 1,000 of them a day. But I think you'll be surprised at, hopefully, I mean, people in our business, even if it's Stephen A. or Bill Simmons, they should get back to you. It's not that hard. Maybe some of them are too famous, or they're like Oprah Winfrey or something. And I don't find that to be the case, or overloaded with. So I just get back to people. And I think that, they'll be nicer to you than maybe you expect, and they'll surprise you. And just, if you have people, but I do, for young journalists, I want you to get out of the dorm, get out of your house, go report on things. I know this has changed, and you talked about the brand, Jeff, and all the things. I understand the newspapers aren't what they were, and platforms are what they are. But I don't want 20-year-old guys at college to send me what they think of the Celtics or the Pistons or the Knicks. I don't care what you think of the Pistons or Celtics or Knicks. You're 20 years old. Go report on Ohio State or, University of Maryland or wherever you are. Go tell me about them. Tell me about Babson's softball team. Just tell me what you know, and show how you can report and tell us about things that we want to learn about what you're around. Learn how to report and talk to people and get out of the house. Don't just sit there watching TV and give me your opinion. I have no use for it.
I think that's great what you said about being open to getting back to people. I will say, honestly, I don't know that everybody's as good as you would be about
It
that.
bothers me.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. But just following up on that, what would be your advice about, a lot of times I think it comes down to how people go about it, like how they go about reaching out, not trying to be annoying, but also being persistent. What would you say about trying to toe that line?
I think that, again, if you're covering a game and, like wherever you are, and the guy from the local paper, the New York Times, the Dallas Morning News, the Boston Globe, comes to your game to introduce yourself and say, if you need any help while you're here, let me know. I can get quotes for you from the other side or whatever. Or just introduce yourself and be polite. And if you have any commitments, be on time, be respectful, don't be entitled, don't be a millennial dick, whatever. Just kind of, it goes a long way. And old people like young people, and are more, I think, by and large, more willing to help than you will think. And the notion of being too aggressive or pushy, that can happen, but you kind of have to have some ability to read the room and know if you're going too far. And most people don't. I haven't had too much where you worry about that, but it's again, people were great to me. And what it does bother me, young people that I've helped become successful, and then I hear from young people trying to reach those people and they don't get back to them. Like, wait a minute, this is like, pay it forward here. You got to keep it going. So yeah, I would hope everybody in our business would be receptive to young people, and they should be. It's not that hard.
One thing you said early on that just piqued my interest, and I want to make sure I didn't forget to revisit it, was the rejection letters. So you literally, I don't know if it's within arm's reach. I'd be curious to see them, or if not, just what went into why you saved those.
I think to remind myself, I have shorts on, so I'm not going to stand up. It'll be an internet sensation.
That's okay. That's
So
okay.
but it's in the file cabinet behind me here, and just to remind me how hard it was and how fortunate I am to be able to buy groceries and feed my family and put kids through college by writing and talking about sports. I mean, that's a real God bless America right there, and I feel very blessed with that. Um, but it was hard, and it was anxious time, when you're that age and nobody will hire you, and you get a lot of no's, and in some cases, it's just nice to remember, oh yeah, this guy rejected me or whatever, and you don't blame them. They were not impressed enough or didn't have anything open or whatever, and that's not their fault. What I see now with the young people, I had 3 adult children who went through the process, but geez, it's what people don't even send the rejection letters now. They don't call kids back. You'll do 1 or 2 interviews, and then you're supposed to perceive that it wasn't you by not hearing anything. If the phone don't ring, it's me. I think that's the horseshit way to do business. And prospective employers should call the candidates back and say, it wasn't you, but we liked your stuff, whatever. At least let them know. My experience, they just don't even tell you. And they just give it to somebody else, and everybody just go away. So I respect the fact that people got back to me, and I don't hold it against them. But that's the sorting out process that young people go through between the ages of 20 and 24 or whatever. And it can be really discouraging, but that's how you sort of figure out who wants to hang in there.
Yep. We've got about 7 minutes left. If anyone has any more questions, certainly pipe them in, and I'll try and sneak them in with Dan before we let you go. You mentioned you have 3 kids. Did you advise your 3 kids to stay away from the journalism industry, or to dive in, or neither?
One of them was a communications major at Boston University and did work for the school paper, and she was good at it and everything. And then she evolved into education, and she teaches journalism at a good high school around
Okay.
here now. So that was as close as anybody got. The other 2 ones, yeah, no one's really that close. They all played, and it was a very lucky time to just having kids who play. For me, it was really exciting because it's just more fun than going to anything. Just go to your kids' games and sit far away and don't say anything, but enjoy watching.
That's with that sentiment in mind, I think a big struggle today for people breaking into this industry, whether it's newspaper, radio, TV, whatever, the pay's not there, and
Yeah.
that's tough. What do you foresee, and maybe just focus on the newspaper business, or take it however you want, but what do you see as far as the future of what you do, what people like you do? I think obviously we all know that the hard copy is going away. What do you see the future being in the next 10, 15 years?
Well, we know everybody's getting their stuff on the phone now, so the platforms are different. There's always going to be a need for reporting and storytelling. And again, there's more outlets than ever because of that. And even in broadcast and TV, there's just places to work now. But yeah, the young people get abused in these radio and TV stations, the PAs, and you gotta be aggressive. Don't get discouraged and stay out there. Keep hustling. Try to be always available. Don't be entitled. Make suggestions and just raise your hand if invariably, oh my God, the Red Sox manager just got fired. We don't have anybody in the building here. Anybody get over to Fenway? And you're there. Raise your hand and just get over there. So, or some equivalent of that. Just to be available and be on top of it. Make sure it's known that you're hungry and you'll do anything. And don't get too complacent about whatever the position that you slot into, and don't get too discouraged, or go do something else if it's too discouraging. I understand that, but there are platforms, and I think people with good mechanics of the language, whether it's verbal or written, and have interest in sports, you can do this. It's not brain surgery. You can do it.
You mentioned the revisiting Belichick's comment about, I forget who was the coach that he made the comment about.
It was
coaching into
Marv
their
Levy,
70s.
Buffalo Bills.
Marv
Won 4
Levy.
Super Bowls,
Okay.
lost them all. He's still alive.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna ask for your age, your number. But we had a question earlier. Are you gonna do this forever? Are you gonna do this till the day you die, or do you have a retirement coming at some
Yeah.
point?
So I'm
What do you
69
think?
years old. I've been doing it forever already. And I wouldn't be a good retired guy. I mean, I'd probably, and I've been allowed to do less travel, less night game deadline stuff, but I am fast, so they exploit that sometimes. So play to your strengths, but no, I don't want to be hustling like a rancher like when I was young and do nothing else and travel all the time and do night games and borderline heart attack lifestyle. So you can scale it back, but I still, I get within the domain of the globe, I get a lot of eyeballs on the material. It's fun. I have great readers. We have great teams, owners, players, fans. We have smart people living around here like yourself from Providence. And it's just, there's great energy here. And I thrive on that. I would be bored. And it's great having the platform to write these columns and get people fired up, whether it's good or bad, and then just enjoy it. I enjoy the hell out of it. You never know. I mean, John Henry, the owner of the Globe, is also owner of the Red Sox, and he's not a Dan Shaughnessy fan. So I'll check my phone when this interview's over and see if I'm still employed, because that could go away at any time, and I don't take it for granted.
Well, you're still on payroll as of this moment. I
As of
hope.
this moment.
As of this month, we'll see at in 3 minutes from now. Last question, and I wanted to hit on this too. I mentioned the book you wrote with Larry Bird. Just really quickly, talk about that process, writing 13 books you've written now. How do you do that while you're juggling the other work that you're doing? As a columnist, I guess it's less taxing in terms of the day-to-day.
I never took a book leave, and some of the times when I was writing books, I was doing beats, and it was, we had little kids, and I have a great wife who was able to allow me to, she took care of a lot of the home responsibilities, and I was allowed to travel and put my head down and do 2 or 3 jobs. So the books all came out of that. When you're traveling for a paper covering a team, which I did with the Red Sox, the Celtics, the Orioles, you're getting all this experience and background, and the newspaper's paying for your book research because you're out there doing it every day. And so yeah, for me to write a Red Sox, I wrote The Curse of the Bambino, the Red Sox history, and I got shelves of books about them, and got to know ex-players and players and fans, and just being, so my Globe job, just about all my books have been piggybacked off the information, the knowledge I got by doing my Globe job. And I'm a pretty fast worker, and I'm very organized, and I'm lucky to have done that. The only one I did with someone was with Terry Francona, the manager of the Red Sox. And when he got fired, we did a book together, and that was a big book, and we were on the New York Times bestseller list, and I had a great partner, and he was very vested in it. And now he's back in the playoffs again, one of the greatest managers of all time. But that was an unusual project to get involved like that. He was out of work the year we did the book, and it was a great experience.
Yeah, you got to go pay Tito a visit this weekend, maybe.
I might do that. He's very visible. He's riding his scooter back and forth to his apartment to the ballpark, and he's a fun guy. And we had a fun time with that book project.
Yeah, awesome. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks to everyone for joining, and of course, most of all, Dan, thank you for the time. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Jeff. I enjoyed it. Good luck to everybody out there. Don't get discouraged.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your